Today I'll be walking through how to build a RAG-enabled chatbot with integrations with Notion, Google Drive, and Slack. So for people who don't know, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, and it's basically a way for your LLM to be enhanced with external data, so that way it can answer questions not just with the underlying LLM, but also the external data sources that you provide. So let's just jump into an example because I think that'll be the best way to illustrate this point. I have a Notion sheet with has an overview, some example use cases, one of them being it can help data ingestion for your LLM or RAG. So I might ask, in Paragon, help me with my RAG-enabled LLM. And you can see it provides a pretty specific answer, and it will actually source my Notion sheet. So we can see exactly where it's pulling the external data from. So I can click on this and it should link me straight to the Notion sheet that I showed. So that's the Notion example. I'm going to go into a couple other examples to show the full array of the integrations that we put together. One of them being Google Drive. So you see this Google Drive has different types of files, right? It has Google Sheet, Google Slides, a PDF, a Google Doc. And one of them is about Paragon webhooks. So I might ask, can you tell me about webhooks in Paragon? It's a pretty lengthy and comprehensive answer. It talks about custom webhooks, some prereqs of it. And again, you should be able to see that it sources our Google Drive file, the Paragon custom webhooks PDF. Lastly, I'll show the Slack functionality. So imagine that I have a channel where people are constantly asking questions and answering them. So this last one might be how Paragon is hosted, and it mentions you can have a shared cloud hosted, a private cloud, or an on-prem solution. So I might ask, how is Paragon hosted? And it mentions exactly those three hosting methods. And again, it sources it from our Slack channel. And what's really nice is actually it pulls in different sources, right? So it's mixing some context from Notion and mixing some context with Slack to provide a more custom tailored answer. So now that you kind of see what this RAG-enabled chatbot can do with these data integrations, I'm going to jump right into an architecture diagram to show you what's going on behind the scenes. So on the left side, this should look pretty familiar. We have our user interacting with our chatbot, sending prompts, and it's responding. It uses an LLM model. We're using OpenAI, and we have a Pinecone index, which is a vector database where we're storing our vector embeddings that we're getting from our external data. On the right side is what's a little bit more interesting. So we have our three third-party data platforms. We have Slack, Google Drive, and Notion. And what we're doing is we are pulling it and receiving webhooks to get real-time data. So whenever there's a new Slack message or a new Google Drive file that's put in, we're able to get it immediately. And we're using Paragon workflows to push that data to our AI Chatbot Backend. And I'll show you some examples of workflows in a little bit. Now I'm going to give some quick steps if you want to get started building an application similar. So we're going to go through some steps that we did. First, we use create-llama's npm command line tool. So all you have to do is install create-llama in npm. And if you run it, it'll ask you for your project name. I'm just going to do a test. I'm going to build a RAG agent. It'll ask what framework. We use Next.js. There's integrations with OpenAI, so we're using an OpenAI LLM model on the back end. And it'll also ask if you want to integrate with a vector database, and we chose Pinecone for ours. I'm not going to generate the code since I have it already set up, but I'm going to cancel that, and I'll just jump right into our example. So a lot of this will be pre-generated starter code. We made some custom code to fit our use case. So one of them being, we'll have a post endpoint that'll receive base64 formatted string. It'll receive this base64 string from Paragon. A Paragon workflow will send it to us, and we'll be able to run a pipeline where we're able to specify our vector embedding chunk size, and it'll be able to insert it straight to our Pinecone database. We're using some libraries straight from Llama Cloud Index, so it's a really great way to get started. Now I'll jump into our Paragon workflows, and I'm going to demonstrate two different types of workflows, one being user-triggered and one being event-triggered. Start with the user-triggered workflow. What this means is a user will perform some sort of action. In this case, it is enabling their integration. And this might be really useful, right? If your customer is integrating for the first time and they want to be able to get all the files in their Google Drive currently existing for their chatbot to use. So they might enable their integration. We should be able to get all their files in their Google Drive. We're able to put some conditionals and check what type of file it is, if it's a Google Workspace native app, like Docs or Sheets, or if it's non-native, like a PDF, for example. And then for each type of file, we might be able to parse it a little bit differently and then eventually send it to our backend. So I'll kind of show this live. Imagine that I'm a new user and I'm enabling my integration with Google Drive. We're using the Paragon's Connect Portal UI. I'm going to hit continue for this, just giving it access. It'll ask me for a folder to share. I'll just share that folder that I showed in the demo originally. And now we can see on Paragon's dashboard, we have some observability that our workflow is indeed running, and we can actually look at the specific steps. And one thing that I really like about the workflow feature and the observability is you can actually see exactly what data is going in and out. So it's better for debugging if any of these steps were to fail. So you can see on this one, we're sending a base64 formatted string, and then we can see the response code and any outputs that it sends back. Second, I'm going to show the workflow for an event-triggered workflow. So imagine that someone sends a new message. We want to be able to run that workflow every time a new message is sent. Slack will give us a webhook event, and we should be able to push that to our chatbot backend. So I'm just going to pull an old message about field mappings. And I just posted a new message, right, about this. And we can see immediately in our task history that that workflow is indeed running. And we can actually see in the data in that it's the exact text that we just sent about field mappings. So that's the demo and the functionality of how you can build a RAG-enabled chatbot with different data integrations like Notion, like Google Drive, like Slack. And there's a whole bunch that Paragon has to offer. If you're interested in Paragon and building a chatbot similar to this, definitely feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to answer any questions and get you started. Thanks.